Case Unresolved.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Silent Frequency. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video.
Case file appeared on my desk at exactly 2:13 a.m. That detail matters, though I didn't know why at the time. I work cold cases for a living, the ones everyone else has given up on. Missing persons, unidentified bodies, crimes with no clean edges. My office is a graveyard of paperwork and bad endings. But this file was different. No barcode. No department stamp, no digital record in the system. Just a thick manila folder with 2 words typed on the tab. Case Unresolved. Inside were photographs, Polaroids yellowed at the edges, a wooded area, a basement wall, a child's shoe lying in mud. I recognized the locations. That shouldn't have been possible. One photo stopped me cold, a living room with outdated furniture and a cracked mirror. I'd been there once, years ago, as a rookie. The case had haunted me ever since. The Hollow Creek disappearance. 4 people gone, no bodies, no suspects. The last page of the file contained a transcript, not typed, handwritten. In my handwriting. If you're reading this, you've already reopened the case. You won't remember doing it. Don't trust the timeline. Don't trust the reflections. My desk lamp flickered. Behind me, the tape recorder I never used clicked on by itself. A voice played back, distorted, tired, terrified. It was my voice. This case doesn't want to be solved. It wants to be remembered. The recorder clicked off. I checked the date on the first police report. Tomorrow. According to the calendar, it was Tuesday. According to my body, it wasn't. I had no memory of Monday, no emails sent, no calls made. My phone showed a full day of activity, messages, browser history, even a food delivery I didn't remember eating. And every timestamp ended at 2:13 a.m. I returned to the Hollow Creek files, official ones this time. The problem was immediate. Details didn't line up anymore. Witness statements had changed. Addresses led to empty lots. Names of victims felt wrong, like placeholders. When I looked too long at a photograph, my head started to ache, a deep pressure behind the eyes, as if something inside me was pushing back. At Hollow Creek itself, the air felt heavier. The house where the family vanished still stood abandoned, windows boarded, paint peeling. The mirror inside the living room was still cracked, exactly as in the photo. I hadn't remembered that detail until I saw it. My reflection didn't move when I raised my hand. It lagged. Then it smiled. Behind me, something scratched lightly from within the walls. Not claws, fingernails. I fled. Back in my car, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. The waitress knew my name. I hadn't told her. She set the coffee down like she'd done it 100 times before. Same chipped mug, same careful placement. Black, 2 sugars, like always. I don't take sugar. Her eyes lingered on me, measuring, not fear, recognition. "You look worse this time," she added quietly. I asked her what she meant. She glanced toward the windows, then leaned in. "You come in after midnight, you ask the same questions, you leave before 2:13. My stomach tightened. How many times? She thought. I stopped counting. She told me about Hollow Creek, how I'd shown her photos that didn't match police records, how I'd asked about a mirror in a house no one admitted existed, how once I'd begged her to lock the door at 2:12 and not let anyone in no matter what they said. "Did you come back?" I asked. Her mouth pressed into a line. "Not the same." She slid something across the counter, a napkin with a number written in my handwriting, an address, a time, 2:13 a.m. "Last time you said if I remembered you, it meant you were still here, that the case hadn't finished eating." I stood to leave. My reflection in the coffee machine glass rose a fraction too late. Behind it, something else stood, tall, narrow, patient, only visible in chrome and shadow. As I pushed the door open, the waitress called after me, "Detective?" I turned. "Don't trust the version of you that comes back alone." The address led nowhere. Literally, the GPS circled an empty block where numbers skipped from 412 to 418. The lot between them was fenced, choked with weeds, and somehow darker than the rest of the street. I cut the engine at 2:11 a.m. The air pressed down, thick as felt. Street lights hummed. No insects, no wind. At 2:12, the fence gate stood open. At 2:13, the house arrived. Not built, remembered into place. A 2-story structure slid into existence like a fort completing itself. Paint peeled in the same patterns I'd seen in the file. Windows dark, front door ajar. Inside, the smell hit first, dust and old water. The living room matched the photograph exactly. Couch, lamp, cracked mirror. I approached the mirror and felt the pressure behind my eyes spike. My reflection raised my hand before I did. "You're late," it used my mouth. I turned away and moved down the hall. Children's drawings lined the walls, families with faces scribbled out. One drawing showed a tall shape standing behind the house, arms too long, head unfinished. The basement door creaked open itself. Downstairs, the walls were covered with tally marks, hundreds of them grouped in 4s. I recognized the pattern. Days, years. On the far wall, written deep into the concrete with something sharp. "This is where the case leaves you." Footsteps sounded above me, not approaching, circling. I backed up, heart pounding, and the lights went out. In the dark, fingernails scraped concrete, slow, deliberate, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. The tape was waiting in my car. I know it hadn't been there when I parked. The passenger seat had been empty. No clutter, no trash. Now a small cassette lay there, its clear plastic case cracked at the hinge. No label. I didn't remember owning a tape player. The car's audio system whirred to life the moment I turned the key. The screen flickered, then went black. The speakers hissed. A click. Then my voice. Not recorded the way voices usually are. This sounded closer, wetter, like it had been spoken right into the back of my throat. "If you're hearing this, you didn't leave when you were supposed to." I pulled over, hands shaking. "Don't try to change what comes next. You never do. Just listen." There was a pause, long enough that I almost believed the tape had ended. Then background noise crept in, wind through trees, a screen door slamming, a dog barking somewhere far away. "You're going to go home," my voice continued. "You're going to check the mirror, and you're going to see him standing where you think you left the case." The tape clicked.
I was breathing too fast. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert I hadn't set. 2:13 a.m. Listen. I sat there until the minute hand crawled forward. At 2:13, the tape resumed on its own. Good, you stayed. The sound changed, indoor acoustics now. My apartment, my living room. This is where you decide whether the case stays open. I turned off the engine. At home, the lights were on. I never leave them on. The bathroom mirror was fogged from a shower I hadn't taken. From inside the mirror, something breathed. The mirror cleared on its own, not at once, in patches, like someone wiping it from the other side. My reflection stood there, but the posture was wrong. Shoulders too relaxed, head tilted in a way I never tilt mine. "You're early," it said. I didn't answer. Behind the reflection, my apartment looked different, dimmer, older, the furniture rearranged slightly, like a memory misplacing details. "You always freeze here," it continued, "every cycle." I swallowed. "What are you?" It smiled with my mouth. "I'm the part of you that finishes cases." I felt the familiar pressure behind my eyes, the same feeling I'd had looking too long at photographs, at mirrors, at dates that didn't line up. "You don't solve this one, you become it." Images flooded the glass, missing persons, empty rooms, mirrors in houses that no longer existed. The Hollow Creek family stood behind my reflection, faces blurred into nothing. "They're not gone," the reflection said softly. "They're filed." I stepped back. My foot hit something. The case file lay open on the bathroom floor, pages damp, ink bleeding. The reflection glanced down. "Ah, you found that version already." I felt anger cut through the fear. How do I stop this? The reflection leaned closer to the glass until its breath fogged my side of the mirror. "You don't," it whispered. "You document it. You pass it on." The bathroom light flickered. Behind my reflection, something tall and indistinct crossed the hallway, visible only as a shadow moving where no body should fit. The reflection's smile faded. "It's waiting," it said, "and you don't get to leave with all of you intact." The mirror cracked with a sharp, final sound, and from somewhere deep inside the walls, a filing drawer slammed shut. Captain Reyes had retired 5 years ago. That didn't stop him from answering the phone like he was still on duty. "I wondered when you'd call again," he said, before I introduced myself. His house smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. Awards lined the walls, commendations for cases closed fast and clean. Hollow Creek wasn't among them. He poured coffee with a steady hand. "You look like hell," he said. "That's usually when it's active." I asked him why he closed Hollow Creek. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slid a folder across the table, thinner than it should have been, sanitized. "We didn't close it, we capped it." He explained the policy, unofficial, unspoken. Certain cases weren't solved, they were contained, files sealed, leads redirected, names removed, mirrors covered in evidence rooms without explanation. "Why mirrors?" I asked. Reyes met my eyes. "Because the case looks back." He told me about the officer who pushed too hard in 2003, how the man began filing reports dated in the future, how he spoke to people who hadn't arrived yet, how he insisted the case was using him to stay open. We reassigned him, then we stopped finding him in photos. I asked him why he'd let me reopen it. Reyes's jaw tightened. "Because you already had, and because every generation needs someone to hold the file. A knock came from the hallway bathroom, soft, polite. Reyes didn't look. Don't answer mirrors, and if you hear filing cabinets at night, leave. As I stood to go, he added, if you meet yourself and he looks relieved, run. Behind me, the hallway mirror showed two of me standing there. Only one moved when I did.
The files started changing after I left Reyes's house. Not the text, the rules. They appeared as annotations in margins that hadn't been there before, written in ink that looked older than the paper. My handwriting, again. Rule 1, never work alone after 2:13. Rule 2, if a room feels quiet, leave it quieter. Rule 3, mirrors are evidence, treat them as such. I followed them without questioning. That's how the file teaches you, by rewarding compliance with temporary clarity. When I broke a rule, the pressure returned. I tested it once deliberately. At 2:14, I stayed in the bathroom and faced the cracked mirror. The reflection smiled, not kindly. I left the room and the smile faded. Rule 4 appeared that night. Do not let the file feel abandoned. I realized the truth then. The case didn't want closure. It wanted custody. I wasn't solving it. I was maintaining it, keeping it from spilling into other files, other lives. Outside my apartment, someone rifled through the building's mailboxes. I heard papers shuffling, drawers opening, impossible sounds for a hallway. When I checked, my mailbox contained a single sheet of paper, a blank incident report. At the top, stamped faintly, case unresolved, transfer pending. Below it, a line for a signature. My signature. I didn't sign. The lights flickered. The filing sounds grew louder, closer, like a drawer being pulled open inside my chest. Another rule wrote itself, hard enough to tear the page. If you don't sign, someone else will. I folded the paper and put it back in the file. For now. The complaint came in writing. A single sheet slid under my apartment door sometime after midnight. No knock, no footsteps, just the soft, deliberate scrape of paper on tile. Noise complaint, Unit 3B. Filing sounds at night, repeated drawer activity, disturbing. I don't live above a filing room. I knocked on 3B the next morning. An older woman answered, Mrs. Handley, polite, precise, the kind of neighbor who memorizes schedules. "You're the detective," she said, not a question. I asked her about the noise. She frowned. "It's not loud, it's persistent, like someone organizing something that doesn't want to be organized." She invited me in. Her apartment was immaculate, too immaculate. No mirrors, none, not even in the bathroom. "Do you hear it too?" I asked. She nodded. "Only when you're home." She showed me a notebook filled with dates and times. Each entry ended at 2:13 a.m. Each described the same thing: drawers opening and closing, paper shuffled, a final heavy thud like a cabinet locking. "I filed a formal complaint," she said, "because that's what you do when something insists on existing." I noticed the notebook's margins, scribbles, not hers. Transfer in progress, witness compatible. Mrs. Handley followed my gaze and went very still. "Those weren't there yesterday." A sound came from my apartment above us. A filing drawer slammed shut. Mrs. Handley's eyes filled with tears, not fear, recognition. "Oh," she said softly, "it's deciding." I backed away. "If you hear knocking tonight, don't answer." She smiled sadly. "That's what you said last time."
The signature line didn't stay blank. I watched it change. The incident report lay on my desk where I'd left it, folded into the case file. When I opened it, ink bled slowly across the page, letters forming as if written by an invisible hand. Not my name, Mrs. Handley's. I grabbed my coat and ran downstairs. Her door was open. Inside, the apartment was no longer immaculate. Drawers lined the walls, dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling, like a filing system built by someone who'd never seen a home. Mrs. Handley stood in the center, calm, holding a pen. "They showed me where everything goes," she said gently. "It's easier when things are filed." "Put the pen down," I said. She shook her head. "You look so tired. You shouldn't have to hold it alone." The drawers began opening by themselves, one after another, a wave of organization. Papers fluttered inside, photographs, reports, names. Names I recognized, names I didn't, names that felt like they were waiting for me. The pen in Mrs. Handley's hand twitched. Behind her, a tall shadow stretched along the wall, not human, not monstrous, rectangular, ordered, endless. I lunged forward and tore the paper from her grasp. The ink smeared, unfinished. The drawers froze. For a moment, everything held its breath. Then, every drawer slammed shut at once. Mrs. Handley collapsed into a chair, blinking as if waking from a dream. "Did it work?" she asked. I didn't answer. Back upstairs, the case file felt heavier, thicker. A new rule had appeared, pressed deep into the cover. Rule 7. If the file finds a willing hand, it will take it. Below it, faint but unmistakable. Prepare a successor. I sat in the dark, listening to my building settle. Somewhere inside the walls, a cabinet slid open. Slowly, patiently.
The first sign was the mail. Entire blocks received letters addressed to no one. Envelopes stamped and postmarked, but blank where names should be. Inside, photocopies of forms with fields already filled in. Addresses that didn't exist, dates that overlapped themselves. At City Hall, clerks complained their filing software was optimizing on its own. Records merged, cases reassigned themselves. Missing persons were marked resolved without explanation, then reopened by different departments the same hour. The city was trying to organize something that didn't belong to it. I drove downtown and watched a municipal building breathe, windows lighting up in sequence like drawers opening. People streamed out, clutching folders they didn't remember picking up. At 2:13 p.m., not a typo, the power grid hiccuped. Traffic lights froze on yellow. Pedestrians stood mid-step, blinking, uncertain. The pause didn't belong to night anymore. I followed the sound of shuffling paper to the records annex. Inside, hallways had multiplied, door numbers repeated, offices mirrored each other with small, unsettling differences. In one room, a clerk stared at a wall of cabinets, hands bleeding from opening and closing drawers. "If I finish, will it stop?" she whispered. I pulled her away. The cabinet slammed shut behind us, furious. On the floor lay a city map covered in pins, red, blue, black, each pin labeled transfer. The pattern wasn't random. It traced routes, commutes, school paths, delivery corridors.
The case was learning movement. My phone buzzed, a system alert. Case unresolved, jurisdiction expanded. I understood the risk. Containment relied on boundaries, buildings, people, roles. A city dissolves boundaries by design. If the case finished filing the city, it wouldn't need a custodian. It would have a population. They convened a hearing, not in a courtroom, but in a conference room lined with glass. City officials, department heads, consultants, everyone sat facing the same direction. A mirrored wall. I stood at the back, uninvited but expected. The agenda projected onto the glass read, "Case Status Review." When the chair spoke, his voice echoed twice, once from the room, once from the mirror a half-beat later. Answers arrived before questions, motions passed without votes. They were speaking to their reflections. I stepped forward. "This isn't jurisdictional," I said. "It's parasitic." No one turned. In the mirror, a figure raised a hand, taller than the chair, narrower than a person. Its outline resolved into filing tabs and labels where a face should be. "Objection noted," it said through every microphone at once. "Witness present." My name appeared on the glass, spelled correctly for the first time in days. The mirrored figure leaned closer. "You are overdue." I felt the pull, the invitation to step forward, to sign, to end the discomfort. Relief hovered like a promise. Instead, I reached into my coat and held up the case file. "I refuse," I said. "This file doesn't close, it transfers, and I refuse." The mirrors cracked in hairline fractures. Officials gasped as their reflections smiled when they didn't. "Refusal recorded," the figure replied. "Escalation required." The lights went out. In the dark, drawers opened across the city, thousands of them, then stopped at once. When the lights returned, the mirrored wall was gone. In its place, a single door, unmarked. On the door, a slot for paperwork. Below it, a plaque. "Final review." The file in my hands grew warm. I knew what waited on the other side, and I knew the city would survive if someone went in. The door sealed behind me with the sound of a vault. The room was larger than the building that contained it. Rows of cabinets stretched into darkness, their labels glowing faintly as if backlit by memory. The air smelled of dust and ozone, old paper and new electricity. At the center stood a single desk. On it, a stamp, an ink pad, and a ledger thicker than any case file I'd ever seen. Its cover read in embossed letters, "Final Review." When I stepped closer, the cabinet stirred. Drawers slid open an inch, then stopped, listening. I opened the ledger. Every page bore a case title, some familiar, some impossible, many blank, waiting. I flipped until I found it. Hollow Creek, status pending. My hands shook. I'd expected relief, closure. Instead, the pressure behind my eyes intensified, as if the room itself were leaning in. A voice spoke from everywhere at once, calm, administrative, inhumanly patient. "All cases seek and end. Ends require an author." "I'm not signing," I said. "Signature is optional. Assumption is not." The lights dimmed. The cabinets began to move, not violently, but methodically. Each drawer advanced a fraction, like a crowd taking a single step forward. Images flooded the air, families waiting for answers, officers burning out, witnesses breaking under the weight of what if. The ledger absorbed them, pages filling with neat lines of text. "Unresolved cases create noise," the voice continued. "Noise attracts attention." I thought of the city above, its people pausing, its systems trying to organize the unorganizable. "What happens if I don't?" I asked. The room answered by opening a drawer directly in front of me. Inside lay a badge, my badge, scuffed, old, real. Then the case chooses its own end. The ledger slid closer, ink pad waiting. I understood then, final review wasn't about justice. It was about silence. I picked up the stamp. It was heavier than it looked, metal cold against my palm. The ink pad glistened, blacker than black, swallowing light rather than reflecting it. "Before I do anything," I said, "I want to know what I become." The voice paused, a real pause, consideration. "You become the author. You decide which noise ends." "And the rest?" "Transferred, deferred, remembered by someone else." I pressed the stamp into the ink. The room exhaled. "I won't close Hollow Creek," I said. "I won't erase it. I'll do what you can't." The ledger opened itself to the Hollow Creek page. The words "status pending" pulsed faintly. I stamped the page. The word didn't change. Instead, a new line appeared beneath it. "Status guarded." The cabinets froze. The pressure eased. Somewhere far away, a city breathed again. "Unauthorized action," the voice said, not angry, but surprised. "Exactly," I replied. I felt it then, the shift, not power, responsibility. The file no longer weighed on my hands. It anchored to me, a living thing tethered to my attention. "What about the others?" I asked. The ledger flipped pages on its own, titles rearranged, some dimmed, some brightened. "Guardians emerge when silence fails."
The city didn't celebrate. It exhaled. Streetlights returned to their usual rhythm. Traffic lights stopped hesitating. Offices reopened without remembering why they'd closed. People went back to routines that fit again, as if something heavy had been lifted and quietly set down elsewhere. I walked through downtown at dawn and watched the signs of recovery in small things. A barista humming, a bus driver arguing about sports, a jogger stopping at a crosswalk instead of freezing mid-step. No one thanked me. That was the point. When systems work, they're invisible. At City Hall, the mirrored conference room had been replaced with drywall. No cracks, no door, no plaque. The agenda board listed normal meetings, budget reviews, zoning disputes. But in the records annex, one cabinet remained slightly open. Inside, it was a single folder, no barcode, no stamp, case unresolved. I closed it gently.
That night, I dreamed for the first time in weeks, not of filing rooms or mirrors, but of Hollow Creek as it had been before. Kids riding bikes, porch lights on, a dog barking. The dream ended before answers arrived. That was also the point. I woke at 2:13 a.m. out of habit. The pause came and went. No pressure, no noise. On my desk, a new rule had written itself on a blank page. Rule 12, guarding means you don't get closure. I nodded to the empty room. Fair. Outside, the city slept, and for the first time, it slept without being sorted. Not everyone forgot. They never do. The first knock came a week later, 3 slow taps on my door at 2:13 a.m., polite, patient. I didn't answer. The file on my desk warmed slightly, like a living thing stirring in its sleep. I opened it and found a new page at the back, blank except for a single line, witness requested. I waited until morning to check the hallway. No one there, but a note lay at my feet, folded with care. I don't need answers, it read. I just need to know where to stop. I met them in public places, parks, cafes, hospital lobbies, people with eyes that lingered too long on mirrors, who heard filing sounds in quiet rooms, who felt compelled to organize pain until it disappeared. I never told them everything. I told them enough. Some cases don't close, I'd say. They're meant to be held. Most left relieved. A few looked disappointed. 1 or 2 looked angry. Those ones worried me. The file taught me to watch for them, the ones who wanted silence more than truth, the ones who asked how to finish it. At night, I keep the file open, not to read, to be read by it. If it writes, I respond. If it stirs, I listen. Because the city breathes again, only as long as someone notices when the air gets thin. At 2:13, the world still pauses. Now, I pause with it. And when the knocking comes, I decide whether to open the door.
He asked for me by description, not name. A person who keeps the noise from spreading, the barista said, uncertain. I found him in the back booth. Neat coat, tidy hands, eyes that didn't blink often enough. He smiled like relief was a promise he could keep. I don't need answers, he said. I need it to stop. I didn't ask what it was. People who come this far never mean a single thing. He slid a folder across the table. Thin, too thin. Inside were clippings, missing persons closed by clerical correction, deaths amended into errors, silence achieved by subtraction. I can help you, he said. End the backlog, end the suffering, close everything. The file on my desk at home warmed in my mind, uneasy. You don't close this, I said. You hold it. He leaned back, pleased. Holding is just delay. I can finish it. I felt the air thin, not pressure, absence, the kind of quiet that erases echoes before they form. What do you want? I asked. Authority, he replied, a stamp that never lifts. He showed me his phone, a photo of the records annex, its doors bricked, windows blacked out. I've already started. No drawers, no mirrors, no witnesses. That scared me more than the case ever had. Silence without guardians doesn't sleep. It spreads. I stood. If you proceed, the case will write you in. He smiled again. Good. As I turned away, I saw it, in the cafe's darkened window. His reflection lagged, then straightened, not smiling, watching me. He moved fast. Within days, filing rooms across the city were sealed. Modernization, the memos said. Mirrors removed from public buildings. Record access consolidated under a single office with no windows and immaculate walls. The city grew quiet in a new way. Not healed, smothered. People stopped reporting small things. Lost wallets, missing pets, bruises that didn't have a story yet. The noise of uncertainty vanished, and with it, the early warnings. I walked through neighborhoods that felt airless. Conversations ended mid-thought, laughter cut short as if it might echo. At 2:13, the pause didn't end. It stretched. Traffic stalled without panic, screens dimmed without flicker. The absence felt intentional. The file burned in my hands. New pages wrote themselves faster than I could read. Emergency, witness suppression, risk, total closure. I went to the office he ran. No sign, no receptionist. A single corridor leading to a room the size of a courtroom. Bare walls, one desk, one stamp mounted to it like a relic. He stood behind the desk, serene. "Listen," he said, "no more waiting, no more guardians. People deserve rest." Behind him, the wall bowed inward, smooth, featureless, swallowing sound. Silence given shape. "You're building a vacuum," I said. "A sanctuary." I felt it then, the case pulling hard, desperate. Without drawers, without witnesses, it had nowhere to distribute weight. It would collapse inward or burst outward. "Step away," I said. He pressed the stamp down. The sound was wrong, too final. Outside, somewhere far away, a door closed and did not reopen. I lunged forward and slapped the stamp aside. It skidded, clanged, and rolled to a stop at my feet. The silence cracked. Not loud, sharp. A whisper threaded through the room, thin as paper being torn. Unauthorized closure detected. The walls trembled. For the first time, he looked afraid.
The case appealed itself. Not to a court, not to a person, to process. Every screen in the building lit at once, phones, monitors, tablets, displaying the same notice in plain black text. Appeal filed, basis existential risk. The man who wanted silence backed away from the desk, hands raised. "I didn't mean—" The walls answered him with a sound like thousands of pages turning at once. The file in my hands tore itself open, pages flipping to a section I'd never seen. Precedent. Each page showed a different city, different decade. Same pattern. A guardian appointed, silence attempted, collapse narrowly avoided. At the bottom of the last page, a blank space waited. "For what?" the man whispered. "For us," I said. The stamp on the floor rattled, inching toward the ledger like a magnet finding north. I kicked it away again, harder this time. The notice updated. "Remedy required. Hearing imminent." The room stretched, becoming a chamber without doors. Benches formed from shadow and dust. A dais emerged, faceless and tall, carved from filing tabs and labels. A voice spoke, not loud, not soft, perfectly audible. "State your appeal." The man tried first. "People are tired. Uncertainty hurts them. Silence is mercy." The chamber absorbed his words and did not react. I stepped forward. My mouth felt dry. "Noise is information. Uncertainty is a signal. You erase it, you erase early warnings, you erase consent." The dais leaned closer. "Propose a remedy." My chest tightened. Remedies cost something. They always do. "Restore drawers, restore mirrors, restore witnesses, but narrow the channels. Keep the noise from becoming worship." The chamber considered. Time did not pass. The notice blinked once. "Remedy accepted. Conditional." A final line appeared. "Appellant to be designated." The man's eyes widened. "No!" The chamber's gaze fell on him. "You sought absolute closure. You shall hold absolute quiet." He screamed as the sound vanished, cut off mid-breath. His outline thinned, flattening into the wall until he was no longer a person, but a featureless panel absorbing echo. The chamber dissolved. The building returned to normal proportions. I stood alone, the file heavy and warm. The appeal was granted. The cost was paid. The city adjusted again. Not back to how it was, never that, but into something workable. Filing rooms opened with limits. Mirrors returned with frames labeled evidence. Reports flowed, but not endlessly. They pooled, then dispersed. The pause at 2:13 shortened to a blink, enough to notice, not enough to trap. I wrote the terms myself. Terms of guardianship. Silence may be used to rest, not to erase. Noise may inform, but not command. Witnesses are protected, not recruited. Closure is optional. Custody is not. The file accepted them. It didn't thank me. Systems don't. At night, I walk the city and listen. The filing sounds are softer now, present, backgrounded, like a heartbeat you only notice when you're still. Sometimes people knock. I answer when they ask where to stop. I don't answer when they ask how to end it. The wall that absorbed the man who wanted silence hums faintly in one office downtown. Sound goes in, none comes out. It will hold as long as the rules are remembered. And I remember. Because guardianship isn't heroism. It's maintenance. If you ever find a file without a stamp, a mirror that lags, a room that grows too quiet, pause. Don't rush to close it. Hold it. If you can't, find someone who will. The case remains unresolved. That's how the city survives.